Arturo Gatti. Arturo Gatti will forever remain in the history of boxing as a warrior who never backed away from pain and who gave the public some of the most spectacular fights of his generation. Even if he had plenty of talent, it was above all his relentless determination that carried him to world titles first as a super featherweight and later as a super lightweight. In the 1990s and 2000s, Gatti became an icon of the sport most of all because of his 3 epic battles with Mickey Ward. Each of those wars was a brutal confrontation filled with incredible shifts of momentum and an intensity that pushed beyond human limits. Their trilogy entered legend and cemented Gatti's reputation as a gladiator who cared little for preserving his body as long as he could give fans a show. Beyond those unforgettable nights, Arturo Gatti became a popular symbol and a true local hero. Nicknamed Thunder by his fans, he was seen as a simple and generous man who gave his heart every time he entered the ring, even in defeat. Against fighters like Oscar De La Hoya or Floyd Mayweather Jr., he still walked away with respect because nobody doubted his courage. After his retirement in 2007, which came after painful losses, Gatti's personal life grew complicated, particularly with his wife Amanda Rodriguez, with whom he lived in constant conflict. 2 years later, tragedy struck when he was found dead in a hotel room in Brazil at just 37. The official version pointed to suicide by hanging, but the circumstances remained clouded with suspicion. Marks on his body and inconsistencies in the autopsy report raised doubts, and his wife's strange behavior fueled suspicion from Gatti's family. His death shocked the entire boxing world, and his funeral drew huge crowds that confirmed the lasting impact he had left. Arturo Gatti's passing remains an unresolved mystery, but his legacy as a fearless warrior of the ring is indestructible. Riddick Bowe. Riddick Bowe was one of the brightest hopes of American boxing at the turn of the 1990s. Born and raised in Brooklyn, he emerged from the amateur ranks with an Olympic silver medal from Seoul, 1988. Towering at 2.05 meters with devastating power, he also carried a rare technical skill for a heavyweight. He quickly established himself as an irresistible force and reached the summit in 1992 when he defeated Evander Holyfield in a legendary fight that crowned him the new undisputed heavyweight champion. That victory marked the peak of his career and opened the gates of glory. At only 25 years old, Bowe was already seen as the heir to the great tradition of American heavyweights. Yet things did not go as expected because he was less disciplined than his rivals and constantly struggled with weight issues. Even so, he won the rematch against Holyfield and continued a career filled with drama, including the notorious fight in 1993 interrupted by the parachutist who fell into the ring. But soon bad decisions and excesses began to take over. Bowe lost his belt to Holyfield in 1993, regained a title in 1995, and then slid into chaos. His career declined dramatically while he was still in his prime. One of the defining moments came when he refused to fight Lennox Lewis for heavyweight supremacy. As negotiations collapsed, Bowe threw his belt into a trash can, and the sanctioning body awarded the title to Lewis without a fight. After retiring, Bowe was involved in a bizarre incident in which he kidnapped his wife and 5 children, forcing them into a dramatic drive. His image collapsed completely, and he later pled guilty to kidnapping, which earned him 18 months in prison. After his release, he attempted several comebacks, but he was only a shadow of his former self. The man who once dominated Holyfield and made Brooklyn dream no longer had the same fire or determination. Years of indiscipline and personal turmoil had drained his potential. Today, the name Riddick Bowe still evokes both power and talent, but also waste and personal tragedy. He could have gone down as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, yet his career and life veered off into scandals and irreparable mistakes. Rocky Lockridge. Rocky Lockridge was a fighter who experienced both glory and downfall throughout his career. Born in 1959 in Tacoma, Washington, he first made noise as an amateur before turning professional in the late 1970s. His shining moment came in 1984 when he faced Roger Mayweather, the uncle of Floyd. In just one round, Lockridge turned the fight upside down with a thunderous left hook that knocked Mayweather out and made him the WBA super featherweight champion. That moment placed him among the top names of his era. He defended his belt with courage and engaged in fierce battles against men like Wilfredo Gomez and Julio Cesar Chavez. With a crowd-pleasing style and fiery determination, he seemed destined for lasting success. Yet behind the glory, personal problems mounted. Like many fighters of his era, Lockridge struggled to manage money and fame. After losing his title, he suffered a string of painful defeats, and opportunities became rare. At the same time, he fell into heavy drug addiction, which ruined his health and finances. From world champion, he gradually slipped into obscurity and misery. In the 2000s, the name Rocky Lockridge resurfaced in an unexpected way when he appeared on the American show Intervention, where his family tried to help him escape his addiction. What struck the public most was a moment when Lockridge broke down in tears so intensely that the scene went viral online. His desperate cry was replayed in countless videos and memes, turning him into an internet phenomenon against his will. Behind the sometimes cruel humor lay the suffering of a man who had lost everything. Rocky lived his later years in hardship, often homeless, but eventually found some stability thanks to social programs and people who had not forgotten him. His health remained fragile after years of abuse and punishment in the ring. In February 2019, he died at 60, leaving behind the memory of a former champion who had touched the heights, but also the depths of human existence. Paul Spadafora. Paul Spadafora was born in 1975 in Pittsburgh and grew up amid tough streets and a troubled childhood. Boxing quickly became his escape and a way to channel destructive energy, and as he turned professional in the 1990s, his talent became impossible to ignore. In 1999, he faced Israel Cardona and captured the IBF lightweight world title after 12 rounds of technical dominance. For boxing fans, Spadafora represented the archetype of the smart boxer, and he went on to defend his belt for years, building an impressive undefeated record of more than 30 wins. At a time when America was searching for new champions, he stood out as a solid and promising figure. Unfortunately, life was not kind. His unpredictable temper was compounded by heavy drinking and violent behavior. In 2003, during an argument with his girlfriend, he pulled out a gun and shot her in the abdomen. The incident shocked the public and revealed the personal demons haunting the champion. He avoided a long prison sentence through a plea deal, but was sentenced to probation for several years, and his reputation was irreparably damaged. Inside the ring, he tried to carry on. After a forced layoff, he returned and extended his unbeaten streak to 48 fights. Yet he never secured the big matches that would have placed him among the global elite because promoters and television networks hesitated to back a fighter whose scandals tainted his image. Unsurprisingly, his personal life continued to spiral with arrests, fights in public, and repeated trips to rehab. Spadafora spent as much time in courtrooms as he did in training gyms. In 2014, he finally suffered his first professional defeat, ending an illusion of invincibility that had lasted more than 15 years. That loss symbolized the definitive fall of a boxer who could have become a legend. Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston never had the smiling face of a popular champion. Born in 1930 into a family of more than 20 children, he grew up surrounded by violence, illiteracy, and the endless exploitation of cotton fields that marked his adolescence. In that harsh environment, he defended himself the only way he could and eventually landed in prison. It was there that he discovered boxing and transformed his raw strength into a formidable weapon. After a streak of spectacular victories, he earned his shot at the heavyweight crown in 1962 against Floyd Patterson and demolished him with a knockout in less than 2 minutes. As the new heavyweight champion of the world, he embodied raw power and pure intimidation. Yet his reign did not last long because Cassius Clay, later known as Muhammad Ali, took the belt from him in 1964 in a stunning fight. Their rematch in 1965 ended with the infamous Phantom Punch and marked the definitive end of his era at the top. Even after those defeats, Liston remained a feared figure whose presence alone intimidated opponents, but he never regained the same aura. As his career declined, rumors about ties with organized crime and the mafia grew louder, and his image as a champion began to fade. The final chapter of his life remains steeped in mystery. On January 5, 1971, his wife Geraldine found him dead in their Las Vegas home. Authorities concluded it was a heroin overdose, yet no injection marks were found on his arms, and those close to him swore he had a morbid fear of needles. Others suggested he had been murdered because of debts or his links with the underworld. Officially ruled an accidental death, his passing remains surrounded by shadows. Liston's impact went far beyond sport. For many, he symbolized the man who should have dominated the 1960s, but was dethroned by an even greater phenomenon named Muhammad Ali. Andrew Golota, born in Warsaw. In 1968, Andrew Golota was a precocious talent who represented Poland with distinction on the international stage. He caught the world's eye at the Seoul Olympics in 1988, where he claimed a bronze medal in the heavyweight division. His aggressive style and imposing frame made him a natural hope for the glamour division, and when he moved to the United States in the early 1990s, many saw him as a future king of boxing. His professional debut confirmed those expectations as Golota piled up victories and dominated opponents. But on July 11, 1996, something shocking happened during his fight against Riddick Bowe. That night, Golota was on the verge of scoring a major win, but he could not resist throwing repeated low blows. Even after warnings, he continued, and the referee had no choice but to disqualify him, which triggered a massive riot inside Madison Square Garden. Hundreds of spectators stormed the ring, and the evening descended into chaos worthy of a movie. What could have been a one-time accident soon became a reputation. In the rematch only months later, Golota again dominated Bowe, yet once more he let his demons take over and suffered a second disqualification. Despite these fiascos, Golota continued his career and faced Lennox Lewis in 1997, but was destroyed in a single round, unable to withstand the British champion's precision and power. Later, he earned more chances against Michael Grant, Chris Bird, and John Ruiz, but each time something collapsed. Sometimes it was a sudden quit, sometimes a mental breakdown, and sometimes a brutal knockout. Golota always seemed incapable of crossing the ultimate threshold. Outside the ring, his life was no more stable. He frequently suffered panic attacks and erratic behavior, while injuries and legal troubles only made matters worse. His name became synonymous with wasted potential, even if in reality, Golota fought wars and left behind unforgettable nights in boxing history. Kirkland Laing. Kirkland Laing remains one of the strangest and most frustrating destinies in boxing history. Born in Jamaica in 1954 and raised in England, he possessed a rare natural talent with movements that seemed improvised, yet revealed a ring sense unlike anyone else. Behind that gift, however, was a man unable to discipline himself enough to reach the highest level. The moment that sealed his legend came in September 1982. That night in Detroit, Kirkland Laing faced Roberto Duran, who had already beaten Sugar Ray Leonard and Ray Mancini. Almost nobody gave the Briton a chance, yet Laing produced a magical performance, neutralizing Duran as if he were an ordinary fighter. He walked away with a points victory that remains one of the biggest shocks of the decade. That win could have been the springboard to world titles, and promoter Eddie Hearn saw him as a rising superstar. But Laing chose another path. Instead of capitalizing on his triumph, he drifted away, consumed by drugs and nightlife. His career still had flashes, and he won British titles, but his life outside the ring dragged him down into anonymity. Later, he lived an unstable existence, sometimes homeless, and sometimes reappearing in British tabloids for the wrong reasons. In 2003, he survived a 4-story fall from a balcony under unclear circumstances, an incident that nearly cost him his life. Tommy Morrison. Tommy Morrison embodied the American dream of a boxer at the summit.